Hello and welcome to the pilot episode of the Factory London Show. You're probably wondering what the Factory London Show is. And I'm pretty sure that every single podcast that's ever launched in the history of this wonderful platform has begun with those words. You're probably wondering what this podcast is all about. Why do we need another podcast? Why am I here? Why are you polluting my airwaves and getting into my ears with more information that potentially I'm not interested in? But hey, you might be. So for those of you that are still here, thank you for hanging around. It's been the grand total of 45 seconds. You haven't left yet. This is fantastic news. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name's Stuart Bluman. I'm the founder of the Factory London here in Plaistow, 5 to 7 High Street, Plaistow, London, E130AD. During the next 15 minutes or so, or however long I ramble on for, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Factory London, this building that I'm in here now, how it came to be. And if you're still listening at the end, I'm going to tell you how you could be involved and bring yourself here if you so choose. So, tell you a little bit more about myself. I wrote that down actually as a little bullet point note as to how I'm going to structure this podcast. I've never done a podcast before in my life. I've listened to I say to many, to several, mainly wrestling. I'm going to be honest. Big fan of WWE wrestling. Been a big fan of the Busted Open podcast. Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. You still with me? Okay, good. And also Fightful Select, excellent podcasts in themselves, and also football podcasts. I'm not going to reveal my football team because we're 2 minutes in now, and you're still here, and we don't want you leaving. So, but yeah, mainly sports and sports entertainment stuff. But I'm going to try and deviate a little bit from what I normally talk about. But yeah, as of yesterday, I'd never recorded a podcast. I'd never done anything technical in this sense. I didn't even know how to plug in a microphone, but I've done my research. I think this is working okay. So 2 minutes 30 we're in it. This is going great, isn't it? What I did actually to prepare for this, I thought hang on a second. There we go. Soft drink there. What I did is I actually went on to ChatGPT and I typed into ChatGPT, write a pilot episode synopsis for the Factory London show. That's how creative I am. And what I did is I typed in, I pasted in a bit of my LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to read to you what ChatGPT has said to me that I should read. So here we go. The Factory London show, and it gives you these wonderful bold headings. Synopsis. The Factory London Show is a podcast dedicated to celebrating the vibrant community of entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small businesses that make the Factory co-working space in East London their creative home. I'll come on to that in a bit. Okay, but I'll carry on. Hosted by Stuart Bluman, that's me, founder of the Factory London. Each episode delves into the inspiring stories of members, explores the latest trends in business and technology, and offers practical advice for anyone looking to thrive in the modern workspace. With its state-of-the-art podcast studio, the Factory is the perfect setting for lively discussions, expert interviews, and engaging conversations. Now, before I come on to the next part, I want to give you a little bit of a history of the building. So this building that we're in now, my grandfather built this, not with his bare hands, mainly because he's not a bear. Dad joke for you there. No, not with his bare hands, but my grandfather was, he's still alive, bless him. He's 96. Wallace Freed, his name is. He used to manufacture women's clothing. Didn't wear it, which is good, but he used to manufacture women's clothing. He used to make clothes for Dorothy Perkins and various different retailers. And he actually built this building in 1964. So it's its 60th anniversary this year. And this is where he made all of his clothing. And I think the factory that, as it was back then, I think he retired kind of or decided to give up the the manufacturing side of his work back in the 1980s, and he started renting this building out. Now, many of you who have perhaps had the opportunity to speak to me over the last year since I've been doing this project have probably heard this story. And I've got to be careful how I put it, just because I don't want to, run into any bother down the line. But let's just say that the individuals who had been renting two of the floors of this building up until the pandemic had decided that the business that they were in, and I won't name the industry they were in. It was a leisure industry, leisure business. The business that they were in was no longer profitable for them, and they wanted to get to diversify into other areas. And one of those areas was horticultural based, and perhaps not legal. Yes, it was that. So we discovered during the pandemic that two of the floors of this building, after being raided by the wonderful guys at the Metropolitan Police, had been used as a farm. So we had a decision to make at that point. Now, at that point, my mother and I were kind of looking after all of the kind of administrative side of this building. We weren't working here, but we were just making sure that all of the tenants that were here were kind of, looking after the place and paying their rent, that type of thing. And we decided, well, the guy that was growing stuff, he couldn't really hang about here for much longer because, just not what the type of industry that we want in this building. So I went to my grandfather and I said to him, look, let me, and there's a slight caveat here, let me, the person with zero business experience, zero property development experience, very little project management experience, and a proven track record of not always following tasks through to completion, let me take over the two floors, develop it into a co-working space. And then at that point, I had to explain to him what a co-working space was. And I'm sure most of you who are listening to this are probably familiar with the concept of a flexible co-working space. So I don't really need to explain too much about that here. I had to explain to him what it was. And I said to him, let me turn it into one of those. And he said, okay. And here we are. And that was that. So that was, we finally got our funding through at the beginning of 2023. And as I sit here today, at the end of June 2024, it's probably been a good 18 months or so ago, we got our funding through, and I decided that I needed to go and source a whole bunch of suppliers, and I will come onto them individually as the Factory London show progresses over the next foreseeable future. But I just wanted to kind of bring it back to where we are now. So I've been developing this co-working space. And I will give a tour, maybe not on this video, but I will give a tour at some point. And those of you that follow me on social media and follow the Factory London probably seen various video footage of this space. We built 10 private offices. We've got co-working, so there's about 50, just over 50 desks in the 10 private offices. So an average of 5 per office. There's my maths. And then we've got co-working space for about another 30 or 35 people on the 2 floors. And we've got this podcast studio and some breakout areas as a kitchen and some toilets, which is a legal requirement. So we are pretty much in a position now to start bringing people in to work here, which I'm really excited about. But that's challenge number 2, and we'll come on to all of this. We'll come on to all this later. But that's how the Factory London came to be. So it was my grandfather's building. It's still my grandfather's building. I'm the leaseholder of the top 2 floors, and I'm the business owner of the Factory London. And it's my job to get people into this space so that maybe can earn some money one day. Who knows? But that's a little bit about myself, and I'll maybe again as this podcast kind of progresses into the future, we'll talk about my background. But let's just come back to this Chat GPT. So we've gone through the initial synopsis. Right. It then says episode 1, welcome to the Factory London. Intro music fades in. So I think I've got. Is that what? Intro music fades in. Hopefully the final edit you can hear this. Yeah. It's quite nice, that, isn't it? All right. Let's fade that out. Then it says narrator, and in brackets, Stuart Bluman, that's me. Welcome to the very first episode of the Factory London show. I'm your host, Stuart Bluman, founder of The Factory, a dynamic co-working space nestled in the heart of East London. This podcast is all about the incredible community we've built here, the exciting projects our members are working on, and insights into the ever-evolving world of entrepreneurship and freelancing. Then we've got it says here in brackets, sound of a bustling co-working space. Now, no one's here yet. Like, it's like when you like arrange a party and you've sorted out the beer, sorted out the caterer, you've got the DJ's there, he's mixing, he's playing his music. Hang on. Yep, DJ's there. He's doing all that. But no one's turned up yet. And I think that's probably the number one challenge since the completion of the development of the space is getting people in here. But I do have an exciting project coming up, or an event coming up in a couple of weeks. I'll come on to that towards the end of this podcast. But yeah, so it sounds of a bustling co-working space. And then it says to Stuart to say, today we'll start by giving you a behind the scenes look at what makes the factory so special. From our stylish light-filled interiors to our state-of-the-art podcast studio, everything here is designed to inspire creativity and productivity. Now, if you've ever used ChatGPT or any other AI service, they're excellent. Do not get me wrong. I've saved so much time on so many facets of this job that I'm doing through ChatGPT, but it does like to use the same words a lot of the time. So bear with me. If it sounds, sorry, just whack the microphone. If it sounds like I'm repeating myself, number one, it's because I am. But number two, it's because ChatGPT has written the same word more than once. It then says transition music, and then it says Stuart. The factory is more than just a place to work. It's a hub of innovation and collaboration, with a mix of hot desks, fixed desks, meeting rooms, breakout areas, and of course our podcast studio. It keeps going on about the podcast studio. Now I know I'm recording a podcast. This podcast studio is available for you guys to rent as well. Maybe it knows that there's got to be some kind of commercial like hook. We offer the perfect environment for entrepreneurs, freelancers, and small businesses. Okay, we get it. We kind of get it now. Then it's got interview segment. This is a bit of fun because I'm on my own in the studio here, but it has introduced a guest, so I might have to put a voice on. It says interview segment. It says Stuart. This is me, obviously. I'm joined today by Jane Doe. For those of you that don't know, Jane Doe is the term I think that the FBI in America use for a deceased woman who has yet to be identified. You have John Doe for men and Jane Doe for women. So ChatGPT has basically put me in a room with a dead woman, right? I'm joined today by Jane Doe, one of our earliest members and the founder of Green Start, a sustainable tech startup. Jane, welcome to the show. And then it's got what Jane Doe would say, but Jane Doe's dead because by her very name. But let's just pretend there is a real. I apologize if there's anyone called Jane Doe, and if you are, like, comments or something or whatever if your name. Right, Jane Doe. Thanks for having me, Stuart. It's great to be here. And then I say, Jane, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how the factory has played a role in your business? Absolutely. When I started Green Start, I was looking for a space that offered flexibility and a community of like minded individuals. The factory has been instrumental in providing not just a workspace, but a network of support and inspiration. Thank you, Jane. Then it says sound of typing and background chatter. And then it's me. That's fantastic to hear. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs looking to start their own ventures? Then Jane says, stay passionate and persistent. Surround yourself with supportive people and don't be afraid to take risks. The right environment, like what we have here at the factory, can make a huge difference. And then it's got transition music. And then it's me. Thank you, Jane. That's some great advice. Now let's dive into some upcoming events at the factory. From networking nights to our popular Pitch Perfect sessions. Write that down. Pitch Perfect sessions. That's a good idea, actually. Pitch Perfect. There's always something happening. And actually, okay, I'm not going to read the rest of. Actually, no, Jane's gone. Oh, I mean, she was already gone, but that's the end of that interview. So we do actually have an event coming up, and this is a public service announcement. So please do pay attention to this part. And just checking the time here, 16 minutes in is pretty good going. Well done if you've got all the way here. We are running an event, Founders Week event, from July the 8th to the 12th in partnership with an incredible company called Seed Legals. Seed Legals was founded by a chap called Anthony Rose, who I met many years ago when I was doing another project. I was working on a football app, developing that. And I'll talk about that in a later podcast because that's got some good stories on that too. But Anthony Rose founded Seed Legals. He was working on another project back then. He's a serial tech entrepreneur, fascinating guy. I'm hopefully going to get him on the podcast at some point in the next few weeks, certainly during the Founders Week. And Anthony gave up time and lots of it many years ago to kind of mentor me into what I needed to do at that point to try and get that app off the ground. Anthony has since exited many tech startups, and he founded Seed Legals a few years ago, and it's basically a platform for startup founders to find VC funding or any other type of funding through a network of investors. And if you're an investor, you can go onto the platform and find a founder and a startup to invest in. And if you're a startup and founder, you can go on there and you can find the investment. So we are putting on a Founders Week event with Seed Legal. We've so far got about 60 companies. I'm very pleased to be able to say that. 60 companies coming in for a week. They're going to work out of this space, and then hopefully there'll be plenty of interviews for the podcast during that time, and maybe one or two of them might want to hang around and work here on an ongoing basis after that. But that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. But I think we'll call it a day on this pilot episode of the podcast. Just basically because I think you probably heard enough from me for now, and I've got to go and check on poor old Jane Doe, who seems to be slumped in the corner over there. But thank you for listening. You have been listening to Stuart Bluman. I am the founder of the Factory London here in Plaistow in East London. This is the Factory London show. If you want to come and work out of here, just hit me up at, that sounds so weird, doesn't it? Hit me up. I'm 44 this year. Stuart at thefactorylondon.com, or you can go to thefactorylondon.com website, and all of our social medias are on there. I would name them all, but they've all got various different variations with underscores, and I was quite late to the party with the name The Factory London, so I just couldn't get the Factory London on Twitter or Instagram. There's underscores and all sorts of stuff. But hey, thank you very much. I appreciate you listening, and I'm going to now try and get this uploaded onto Spotify. Could work, might not. See you later.